Hello everyone and welcome back to another Babbling Irons video, and today we're going to be previewing the Tottenham Hotspur clash this Sunday, and you never know lads, we might just get 3 points. Yes, so Tottenham Hotspur next, Spurs, probably the biggest fixture for us of the season, especially away from home. It's always a pretty tough place for us to go. But we've had success there in the past. You know, we got that 1-0 win with Antonio a few years back now at the stadium. Can we expect another win this time around, or is it going to be very, very difficult considering not just the form that we've been in, but also, you know, Spurs at home as well. They've been pretty good.
Yeah, I think the other factor is the amount of injuries that we got at the moment. You know, Paqueta's already been ruled out as definite. He's not there. I think it was said that Aged might be able to play this weekend, and Skamaka is probably just about good enough to get on the bench. So, granted, we potentially have a couple of players back, which is good considering how bad we thought it was going to be. But I think it's going to be difficult to go to Spurs and to get a result. You know, obviously, the last game wasn't very good for them. Let's face it, the last two games, they've had two on the bounce, which they've lost. I can't, as much as I would love to say they're going to lose three on the bounce, I just can't see it at the moment. And, you know, they beat City at home. Let's be honest. As you say, their home form is good. I think if we were playing them away, then I think it would probably be more of a 50-50. But I think off the back of those two defeats, I feel their players are going to feel they've got a bit of a point to prove.
Yeah, I mean, let's take a look at the head-to-head before we discuss further. But you can see here, they've played one more game than us in the Premier League so far. They're sitting 5th, where we're actually sitting 16th, which is it's actually better considering we were 17th and 18th in previous weeks. So we've moved up a little bit. Spurs on 39 points. We're on 20 points, and they've got over double our wins. They've got 12, and we're only on 5 so far this season. So there was a lot of talk about Spurs, especially at the beginning of the season, being one of the maybe outside challengers for the title under Conte, with Liverpool and City as the front runners. But I remember putting in my prediction, I didn't put them in the top 4. I said, I don't think they'll even get top 4. And I think that could still be proven right, depending on how Newcastle get on and whether a Chelsea or a Liverpool come up. But Sloth, what have you made of Spurs overall so far? And, you know, the whole dynamic with Conte is a bit strange because they've got a really, really good manager, but it seems to be that he'll play up with the press a lot if results don't go his way. Obviously, he's, you know, recovering from surgery at the moment. But what have you made of like the whole process under Conte for Spurs?
I just think it's been a real sort of hodgepodge and mix match scenario. I mean, I love Antonio Conte. I think he's such a good manager, and he having that 5 at the back is always going to be how he plays. But that, and you know, I hate saying it, but it doesn't really seem to be working out for him. It's all been very Spursy in a lot of the things they've done. Signing Jed Spence just seems to have been a nothing for them when it was supposedly going to be something that they were looking to do, bringing these young players. And, you know, they've already signed a new right wing back who he's fantastic in a 5 at the back system. But we hear time and time again from Spurs fans how they don't like this 5 at the back, whereas it covers a lot of the defensive frailties they have. It covers a lot of the wing back failures they have. And although it kind of blunts their attack or the sheer amount of quality they have up top, it seems like things just aren't really clicking at so many different areas in different games for them. Because on paper, they have a side that should be competing for the very highest honours. But as I say, it's that old cliche of them being Spursy. And I'm probably going to make myself look like a right muppet because they'll probably trounce us about 5-0 or something at the weekend. But it's just not working out for them. And even though they've got different areas of the pitch, they have them. What's the young left back who used to play for Fulham? It's not Sessegnon.
Sessegnon, yeah.
yeah, they have these very talented young players, but they're just not playing them. And you have to kind of question, where's the development? Where's the long-term progression of this side? Because Bissouma's, you would argue that apart from a couple of games, he's completely been anonymous. Richarlison's still not really adding to them. And Heung-min Son's been absolutely anonymous. So he'll probably come good at the weekend.
I think that's one of the key things, isn't it? That Spurs for so many years, that link up between Son and Kane has just been so good for them. And they've been pretty much that everything that goes through them is from Son and Kane. So because Son hasn't particularly been on it this season, and, you know, Kane has been the one that's been scoring the goals, and, you know, it's been Kane's best ever Premier League season so far. So, and that's kind of gone under the radar just because of what Haaland's been doing. And
I'm not going to talk about Kane because I've made my opinions on him very, very clear that I don't really like him as a player. I think he's a fantastic goal scorer, but, you know, I think he is just a goal scorer, which is fine if you are, you know, looking, if you're going to utilize that. But when he drops deep, he does all this link up area. It's clear that, you know, it only works for him. It doesn't necessarily bring out the best in the players around him unless
I don't know about that, because you look at the link up he had with Son, like a lot of that was reciprocated. It wasn't Son providing for Kane. It was a lot of Kane providing for Son as well, the other way.
Yeah.
I don't think he's just a finisher. I think that's quite hard.
I think the problem with him is that he doesn't have the cutting edge in terms of his athleticism. He doesn't have the pace that, you know, a Rashford has. And when Rashford plays well, he gets talked about a lot. But as you mentioned, with comparison to Haaland's absolutely blitzing the league. But I do think that if Kane had that element, he would be dominating things. He would be winning stuff already. But there's a reason that nobody's actually knocking on the door with a £100 million bid, £150 million bid for him, and it's because
City did, didn't they? City tried to get him for about 100 million. I don't think it's a case of that. I just think that
we say they tried, but let's face it, if City want someone, they're going to get him. And, you know, if whether they just did that to kind of just test the water or even just try and destabilize someone, you never know. I think it's a case of if they want someone, they're going to get him. And yeah, I don't particularly like him. I know he's a great player, but I would never put him as one of the best that have been in the Premier League. If you gave me a fantasy football team, I'd still be picking Thierry Henry and Alan Shearer without a second's hesitation above him. And yeah, I think their issues are never just one player. It tends to be the spine of that side, that there's always some sort of area that's not working, whether Dyer's form is off, whether it's Bissouma in the middle of the park who's not making an impact. It's throughout the side, and yeah, just something's not clicking for them.
Well, let's take a look at the kind of predicted XIs of both teams going into this clash, because we've both got injuries. You know, we've got, you know, Agerd, Skamaka, Paqueta probably going to be out. Obviously, Cornet as well, a long-standing one. But they also have a lot of issues as well in midfield. You know, the likes of Bentancur's injured. Bissouma, we just mentioned, has a long-term injury as well. So these are probably the lineups we can expect to see, give or take a couple of players. So we'll start with their team. Obviously, Forster in goal because, again, another injury with Lloris. Royal right back. Romero, Dyer, Longley has been pretty much their back three for a long time. And, you know, Perisic is kind of picking himself at the moment. And then their midfield, they've got Højbjerg. But other than that, it's between Skip and Sarr. So they're pretty depleted in midfield as well. And then we can expect their front three to be as it is with Son, Kulusevski and Kane. But you can kind of see similarities in the fact that we're missing, you know, we've got Rice, but we're missing Paqueta next to him. You know, we're missing some key players as well as them. So it's going to be quite an interesting one because we're going to be probably playing a similar system to Spurs. Not exactly, but we're going to be playing with that back three as well. So looking at this, where do you think we can, get some success against Spurs? Because we know that they're very good on the counter attack, and we saw that not long ago when we drew 3-3 with them. The blistering pace they had against us when they were 3-0 up after about 17 minutes was so clear. And I remember that day we had Balbuena in defence, and looking at our defence with Agerd injured, it does lack a bit of pace again, and it does lack a bit. It looks a bit more fragile with Johnson coming in instead of Agerd. So I guess a couple of questions. Firstly, how can we look to attack them? But secondly, what do we need to be careful of this week?
One thing to need to be careful of is actually being, not being asleep for the first 10, 15 minutes, which seems to be the problem. The big factor is going to be that midfield. Now, many West Ham fans will look at Matar Sarr and be like, who? If you go with that idea, the sheer ignorance of not knowing what a player this kid could be is insane to me. The kid could be a genuine, player. Given the right time and the right development, he really could be quite a player. And he will give them so much energy, much like we see with Everton with Onana. Now, he's not the same level as Onana right yet, but he is also younger and has that potential to be a player that can break up play and can just go and go and go. The kid has an incredible engine. That's one thing we're going to have to contend with, because he has decent enough pace. Granted, we are stronger physically than him, but once he gets going, he's a very hard player to kind of control because of how well he goes. And people may go, well, who is he anyway? And why is that the kind of thought process? Is because if you'd have seen him in League 1, he was doing it against very established midfields, and they are quite some very strong physical midfields in League 1, regardless of your view, whether you think it's a Farmers League. It's an irrelevance. It's a great development league, and a league where it has some very good, high-quality players that many a club in the Premier League covet. So can't be that much for a Farmers League. But the other thing is, the midfield is where that game's going to be won and lost. And what Tottenham will do, which we will not, is they have a centre forward who is very happy to drop deep and to cause overloads in the middle. If we are not able to cut off the passing into Harry Kane, we are going to be in for a miserable day, because he will come deep. Kulusevski will come inside, as will Son, and they will look to exploit us in the channels of our defence, like Chelsea did. And what Kane will do would basically do what we saw a lot of João Felix. Now, obviously, he was playing in that role anyway, because they were playing a 4, but it's going to be the same kind of principle. Both forwards are going to, or wide forwards are going to come inside and look to exploit the channels between our centre-backs, and Kane is going to drop. And this is what happened before when they played incredibly well against us, is when Harry Kane has just dropped into that role, sat in behind Souček and Rice, and they kept pinging balls into him just behind them, just behind our defence. And then he had acres of space in which to run into. He then could also spray the ball. And if we do not get close to him, if we do not acknowledge that that's going to be a problem area, then we are really going to be caught short. So the only way we can really combat that is either sacrifice one of the centre midfielders, potentially a Bonner, to say, you follow him around the pitch. Don't worry about standing in the middle of the centre-backs. Now, that in turn causes an issue, because Kerr's had issues. And Johnson.
That doesn't sound good to me. Him stepping out like that.
It doesn't. But the truth of the matter is that the alternative is you allow Harry Kane a free role. So it's sometimes you have to look at it in terms of either you sacrifice a midfielder and you just say, Souček, you are going to do so much donkey work, and I'm going to then say, Bowen, Benrahma, you two have to come incredibly tight in midfield, because we essentially need to condense that midfield so Declan can drop back. And you essentially play like a V in midfield, right? So much like how, if you ever hear Deitch talking about defending the V, which say you defend the V when you kind of defend from the back. Again, in the midfield, we have to make a very compact V, or even a Y, arguably, because we'll have Declan Rice sitting behind. And his role is essentially, when Kane drops, you drop. You drop into position, you screen him and stop the passes into him. Because that is where the game's going to be won and lost, is in that little midfield section. Now, Tottenham have a lot of other a lot of other talent that we need to be aware of. It's
Yeah.
not just Harry Kane. Obviously, while Son has been off the boil, he's still a dangerous player and he loves a goal against us. Kulusevski is also a very dangerous player. So Emerson's going to have, I think, more of a game in this one than he did in the game against Chelsea, because Madueke was a good player, is still finding his feet a bit in the league. Kulusevski has been in pretty decent form and very much the player Tottenham are going to when they need a player.
He's also not going to have a Gerd behind him, is he? It's probably going to be Johnson.
No, exactly. And Emerson Royale is also going to get forward down that side. So Emerson's going to have to do a lot of work. So is Ben Rama in trying to defend that side. Now, granted, there's also ability then to exploit that. We probably have to ask Antonio to come over, although I'd be looking really to attack. When we look at Tottenham, I would be looking to attack the opposite side to Royale and targeting Longley and saying to Antonio, go and bully him, because he's that type of player that always has a ricket in him and can be bullied and can just lose his head. You know, that's why Barcelona got rid of him. He became in the end for Barcelona a liability. And at times his defending was, it sounds harsh, but it was actually laughable. So he's the player that we have to target. So it's either going to have to be Antonio or, again, as I say, we're going to have to say to Bowen, you're going to need to just attack him, put him under pressure and really kind of essentially force him to have to defend his 18-yard box and get him to twist and turn, because that's where he can then start to struggle.
Do you think this could maybe, sorry, Soph, just quickly, do you think this, could be a better game for someone like Fornals? And, what we mentioned there about being overloaded in midfield with Harry Kane, do you think it could be maybe a wise option to go 5-3-2 instead of sort of a 5-2-3? Have Bowen and Antonio as your further forward players, and then have Fornals in that kind of not attacking midfielder role, but, the furthest forward of the three. And we've seen this in the Conference League a few times from Moyes, where we kind of played that 5-2-1-2 instead of a 5-2-3. And it just gives us that extra body in midfield. There could even be an argument for someone like Flynn Downs to come in for this match and provide that extra body inside. But what do you guys think about that? Or would you rather see something like a 5-2-3?
I think... Go, Sloth, you go.
I quite like that idea. I think the only thing that is really kind of putting me off at the moment is just that sheer lack of pace. Like, Tottenham have so much pace all over the park, and yet, aside from my criticism of Kane, he can ping that ball out to them. And if you're looking at Kulusevski, if you're looking at Son, then they are these kind of big, powerful guys who can run and just give you an instant game changer, especially when it's against Ogbonna and players who don't have that ability in their locker. Now, when we're talking about stocking up on the midfield, I almost think we should just be saying to someone like Souček or Rice, just sit back, just stay in that area and get involved in the midfield. If the ball comes your way, throw yourself at it. And if someone like Fornals is in that three, I think that's going to really help, because they will doggedly chase it. They won't give up on it. And they have the ability to actually knock it about, actually play a ball. Just use Souček as that blunt weapon and get him to throw himself at things, get him to chase it, get him to do the legwork that we need in that midfield, but with Rice alongside him, because I think having that is going to be key. The midfield battle, I think, is huge. If Sarr is playing, I think that does kind of give us an edge, but just because of his inexperience. And he's one of the players that I mentioned as a potential Rice replacement when he was at Metz. But it's, it is that inexperience that I think we can target it. But in terms of how he plays, he's fantastic, and he's got a hell of a right foot on him. So I think it will just be a case of, if we're going to have to be very smart about when we send numbers forward. If we even break our shape, if we even kind of give them a few extra yards, they're going to burn us for pace.
Yeah, I think this is a massive game for Bowen. I think whatever you mentioned there, Mike, about attacking the side of Longley as well, and Perisic, that is where we're going to get success, because like you mentioned, Antonio can do the bullying. You know, he can bully Dyer, he can bully Longley, he can get into scuffles with Romero, because, you know, Romero is another one that will go into a challenge, and, you know, he is a yellow card waiting to happen. So if Antonio can do what he does well, which is at times he can make those runs, he can bully defenders, he can, you know, create some space for other players like Bowen to run into, that could be the only really way I can see us getting through that Spurs defense, just because of A, how we're going to set up, B, how they're going to set up, and C, just the personnel we're going to have on the pitch, because we're not really going to have any players like Paqueta to control that midfield. We're going to have Rice, but he's going to have Souček next to him, so that's going to make his, you know, workload incredibly tougher. And then it's whether Benrahma will start, and he, you know, his past couple performances haven't been great. So where do we have that, you know, ball retention and you know, just the capability of playing those passes through to the likes of Bowen and Antonio? So I think we're going to have to make it a rough match and just hope we can get things like set pieces and just try and contain Spurs as much as we can, because with the defense, as we were seeing like here, that defense we have does not fill me with any confidence at all, especially with Agerd being out, because we've lost that recovery pace, we've lost that composure out from the back, and it's going to make it very difficult to keep hold of the ball. And, you know, Spurs are going to push us back. As much as they like to sit and counter, they will push us back just because of how we play. So I think it's going to be, yeah, like I mentioned, it's going to be a tough game, but Bowen is probably the outlet for us and down that side. And, you know, with our wing backs, when we do get chances to move forward, they're going to have to be putting in very good deliveries, and they're going to have to be on it, because we can't afford to lose the ball when we are attacking, because they'll completely do us in transition. So, yeah, I don't know. Are you guys confident ahead of this? I know, you know, in the Chelsea game, we were a little bit more confident after the Newcastle match, but I think this is a much tougher test than that Chelsea game, just because we're playing away and just because of the system that they're going to play.
The problem is
confident, but I do
have
think...
The problem is that Chelsea actually have Tottenham actually have a striker, as opposed to as opposed to Chelsea, where they just have nobody who is a forward in terms of an out-and-out nine. So I am very nervous, because I think if we start slowly, and actually I don't even need to say if, when we start slowly, because we have always started slowly in every single game of the season, when we start slowly, they will cause us absolute nightmares. And I think it's either going to be one where we completely park the bus and we get a 1-0 win, and it's the most anxious game ever, or it's just going to be one where we get absolutely decimated, because, as I said, with that pace, with the players they possess, and also with Conte being back. I
think he's out now, actually, Conte.
Oh, he's now out?
Yeah, he's got to recover again.
Well, I think that's a big bonus for us. But with them now looking to make a point, they'll probably be looking to make a point to him. But also at home, I'm really not confident, and it's my birthday as well. So, you know, it's going to be really disappointing if on my 30th we just get absolutely drubbed.
I think the one good thing is that in the last 2 years we haven't lost more than 2 goals in any game. Obviously, that can change, but I think, as we've said as well, it's probably one of the reasons why Moyes hasn't been sacked, is because he's actually not been tonked, no matter how bad we've been.
Why would you say that? Why?
It's my birthday treat to you, mate. But I genuinely, it's a game that more than anything, you have to win those individual battles and then earn those rights to play. If you are committed, as we've shown, when the pressure is on Tottenham, their fans turn. You know, people say our fans turn. As we saw in that game when it was 3-3, those fans started to turn once it went to 3-1, then it went 3-2, and then the players picked up on that negativity. If you can get in and around those players, and as much as Tottenham fans love to say it's our cup final, truth of the matter is West Ham fans don't care for 36 games in a season of what Tottenham are doing, unless they play badly. The only times West Ham actually care about Tottenham is the 2 games we play them, and we just, all it is we don't want to lose. The only people that perpetuate it's a league cup final is Tottenham. And they hate to lose this game to us because it hurts them, because they have this overinflated belief in their own self-importance. They've done nothing. They have done nothing in football, nor have we. They got
I
to.
thought I was going to get heat for my Kane comments. I thought I was going to get heat for my
Oh,
Kane
who
comments.
cares,
But
man?
now I think you've dropped it.
Yeah,
I
but
think
the truth, it's the absolute truth. They got an overinflated belief in their own self-importance. In the time where they were saying that they were brilliant and the best team in London, Arsenal was still winning FA Cups. Your most successful period, you won nothing, they won something. We've not won anything. But the fact of the matter is we've won the grand same total as them. So to say it's our final is hilarious because let's face it, if this is our final, we've won our final more times than they clearly have. So whatever. But the other thing that I kind of, aside from that, when I look at this game, I look at Fornals could be incredibly important if he plays. And the reason I say that is because we talked about him coming inside. Personally, I would like to see Fornals over Benrahma. That's not because I'm thinking from a creative point of view. And actually, I think it could work for us in our favour. The fact that defensively it means that you can have Fornals drop in and you can have a free in midfield. That can potentially nullify Harry Kane dropping. Also means if we win the ball, all of a sudden we've got an overload against their midfield because he is there. It means Emerson can kind of push up higher. Also means if you're then adventurous, you kind of say, Fornals in defensive situations, you drop into a free. Antonio, Bowen, I want you two to split as a front two. Let Tottenham have the ball in that back three. We know that back three can have issues. Probably Romero's the most secure, but we know Longley and Dyer can have mistakes in them in possession. So as long as you kind of put yourselves in a position where you're kind of nullifying their approach into the wide areas, we're packing the midfield, we're starting to nullify where Tottenham want to be. They want to attack us centrally. They want to go vertical. They don't really want to go wide and whip the ball into the box as much because they're not necessarily going to rely on Harry Kane to get on and nod headers. They're looking for cutbacks. They're looking to get wide and behind you to draw the ball back. They're not looking for essentially to, they want to come in middle. They want to try to do that. They want to control the ball. Now, if you can condense those spaces, you can make it very difficult for them. And I think that's something we can do. And then obviously in transition, it means that if you've got Bowen and Antonio pushed a bit higher, they have the ability to go those flanks. If you've got Fornals dropping in deep alongside both Souček and Rice, you can then also release Souček to go and burst through the middle. Obviously, he's not going to burst because he's not exactly quick, but he can still attack that middle space to get himself in the area. And Fornals can help Rice in which to orchestrate and to get the ball through the phases, through the middle, or even out into the wide flanks. There are ways in which we can hurt Tottenham, but we have to be at it from the very first minute. And that's the main thing. We haven't been at it from the first minute in games. We play too many in patches and we play with an inferiority complex. Now, that's one of our biggest problems. We go into these games with essentially acting inferior because we give the impetus. We don't snap into the first tackle. Regardless of whatever happens, sometimes it's that psychological thing of just first tackle, snap into it. If it's a card, it's a card. But make a point from that very first minute, in the very first engagement that you have, that you are on it. It doesn't matter if you sit deep and you concede possession, but when you have those moments to make a telling or physical contribution, do it. You have to let the opponent know they're there. So they maybe sometimes think twice about going in for that challenge. Maybe think twice about maybe trying that pass again, or you just create doubt. And that's ultimately what we have to do. We have to create doubt in Tottenham. And if we can create doubt in the Tottenham team, based on some of their inconsistencies this year, based on what happened against Leicester, we might be able to create doubt in their own crowd, which could add pressure onto them. And that's what it's about. It's about turning their own support on them. And Tottenham fans will turn. They're just like us. They will turn on their team. It's as simple as that. But we have to be at it from the first minute. And then should we go on and win, we'll say thank you very much, walk away, and they'll cry about losing another final.
I think if Cress starts, we have a problem. I really think that if Cresswell starts in a back five, we have a real problem.
I think he won't, based on the fact that Johnson came on in the last game. I think had Cresswell came on against Chelsea in that left centre back position, I would agree. I think Cresswell would have started, but I think that's a bit telling that in that moment he looked at Johnson over Cresswell. But
yeah,
this is Moyes, so we don't know. He most likely is going to go for Cresswell
yeah.
and play in there. If he does play
yeah.
Cresswell, I do think, again, I agree with Slough. I think we could potentially struggle, but he tends to have done pretty well in that left centre-back position because he's a bit protected, and it also means he tends to get the ball in positions where he's effectively able to set the ball and have a free kick when he crosses it, because he comes into positions where he doesn't have pressure. He can stop the ball and essentially have a dead ball. And that's when he delivers better. And that's when he has been better for West Ham in his delivery, when he's had to kind of essentially play dead ball situations in open play.
Yeah, I think for us to summarise this, it's going to be really important that we do switch on from the start, because it's happened every week. And if you go 1-0 down against a team like Tottenham, it just plays into their hands so much nicer, because they can then just sit and counter-attack with the pace that they've got. And that's how they want to play. That's what they want you to do. So if we can make it tough for them and just don't concede within like the first 10 to 15 minutes, then I'd say we're already halfway there to getting a result. But yeah, just to summarise, so again, it's that midfield battle. We've mentioned it on the last couple of previews, how important that's going to be. And, you know, it's going to be a little bit more difficult without Paqueta this week as well. You know, granted, he didn't play much against Chelsea, but this is a different test because Spurs, like you mentioned, will overload that midfield. They will look to create 3 versus 2. And if we're not alert to that, we will struggle. And yeah, it's going to be very difficult for us to kind of move in the offensive transition as well. But before we leave, lads, let's get our score predictions and let me know how you're feeling. You confident?
I'm you know what? I'm going to go 2-1 Spurs. I can't believe it. I hate saying it, but I just think that they're not going to go on to 3 games in a row with a defeat.
Slough?
I said it'd either be a drubbing or an absolute infuriating performance. I'm going to be positive because it's my birthday on the Sunday. So I'm going to go 1-0. Going to go 1-0 to us, but we're going to get absolutely destroyed in terms of it's going to be all them.
I think every West Ham fan would take that.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I am leaning towards Spurs winning. I think it'll be 3-1. But you know, considering it's your birthday, Slough, I'm gonna predict 1-1. But I'm gonna keep 3-1 in the back of my head. But yeah. I think a draw would be a good celebration-worthy result as well. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, another tough game, and then after this, it is the big one really. Forest at home, so it'd be interesting to see how we approach this game. Whether we kind of let the shackles go a bit, just because you know it's kind of a free hit in many ways. We're going there expecting to lose in many eyes, so why not just try and press them and give it a go? But yeah, we'll see what happens. Thanks for watching the video. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And lads, until the next one.
Come on, you Irons.